Hello and welcome into Rebecca K Crochet. I'm Becky, your yarn host, and today what we are going to do is talk about how to read a crochet pattern. I have a lot of beginners, new crocheters on my channel, and I want to make sure that you guys know how to read the pattern. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I'm following a crochet pattern. May seem daunting or difficult, but it's not really whenever you figure out that they're all pretty much the same thing. So the first thing that it's going to tell you is the skill level. If you are a beginner, you want to pick out the easy patterns. You don't want to pick out an intermediate or an advanced pattern. You want to do easy, beginner. They'll say things like that, advanced beginner. If you've been crocheting for a little bit, you might be able to do the advanced beginner. And before you go to the advanced beginner, you need to work several easy patterns. Most of the patterns that I have on my channel are easy. Some of them are advanced beginner. I don't have any that I would consider intermediate. Because it's just one stitch at a time. I do intermediate patterns and I do advanced patterns, as you can see on some of the things that I've done. But for the most part, if you want a simple, mindless crochet pattern, then do the easy, beginner, advanced beginner patterns. The next thing it's going to tell you is the size of the finished product. It doesn't matter if it is a scarf, it's going to tell you the length and the width of the scarf. It's going to tell you the length and the width of a blanket. It will tell you the actual size of a garment. If you're making a garment, it will tell you the size of it. So you have to sit there and think, okay, is this the size that I want my finished project to be? Am I going to need less because I want it to be a baby blanket and not a throw, or do I want it to be bigger for a king size? And if I can make it a king size blanket, what am I going to have to do? So that is why that is there. It's a guide, but it's not something that you're going to have to be set in stone with. But as a beginner, you need to follow that pattern to make sure that you can do that pattern. The next thing it's going to tell you is your material list, and your materials are your yarn, your crochet hooks. It's going to tell you the size of crochet hook. It's going to tell you how much yarn you're going to need and the kind of yarn that you're going to need. Is it cotton? Is it acrylic? Is it a blend? Is it wool? It's going to tell you this is made out of thread. This is made out of nylon. All those different kinds of yarns. It's going to tell you. Can you go and change up the yarn that you're using? Yes, you can. Because like I said, a pattern is just a guide. It's there to tell you, okay, out of this certain yarn, this is what I got, but it's your project, so you can go and make it out of whatever you want to. But know that as a beginner, you also need to know and need to understand that if it's not the same size, the yarn's not the same size or the same kind, if it's acrylic versus cotton, it's going to drape different. There's going to be different things that happen, and you have to be aware that this may not turn out exactly the same if you use a different yarn. So just be aware of that. You also want to purchase the same amount of total yarn that it tells you that you're going to need, not by weight, but by yardage or meters. Because weight, all yarns are not the same weight, but meters or yards are the same. And so you may have a heavier, denser, like wool weighs more than acrylic, cotton weighs more than acrylic does. And so you're going to have more weight with cotton than you do with acrylic, or more weight with wool than you do with cotton. I don't think so. But wool weighs heavier than acrylic. So not by weight, but by meters. Also, if you want to select different colors to suit you, instead of, say somebody's doing something in a tweed and you just really don't like tweed, well, pick a color that makes you happy. You don't have to do the exact same thing that you see. You can, if somebody's doing it in pink and you absolutely hate pink, but you love blue or purple, do it in blue or purple. Or if you love green, do it in green. I absolutely do not like green, and I would not do that. And I don't particularly like orange, but yet I showed you something that I'm getting ready to make with orange. So, you know, things catch your eye at certain times of the year that you're like, oh, I like this, I'm gonna do it in this, or I don't like that color, but maybe this will make something better. If it's Christmas and you don't like red and green for Christmas, but you like blues and whites, do it in blues and whites. It's your project. So then it's also going to tell you the hook size that you're going to need. And you need to do the hook size based on the size of yarn that you're going to do. And a gauge swatch will come in handy here, but you need to get, let me grab it. Okay, so this skein of yarn or ball of yarn calls for, this is a 4 worsted weight, I'll get it over here, worsted weight, and it calls for a 5mm hook right there. 5mm hook. This is cotton yarn. So I would get, if that's what my pattern called for, because I'm doing a cotton, I would get the 5mm hook. Now if it says that you're going to do it tighter and you need a 4mm hook, I would buy a 4mm hook if I don't have one, and a 5mm and a 6mm, or a 5.5mm. or a 4.5mm, because your size that you crochet, you may crochet tight like I do, or you may need to go up a size or 2 in your hooks. And so as a beginner, you're probably going to either crochet extremely tight, or you're going to crochet extremely loose, and you'll have to go down a hook size. If you crochet tight, you'll probably have to go up, and if you crochet loose, you'll have to go down. So that being said, you need to kind of have a range of hooks in your arsenal in order to do a pattern. So I would suggest buying several different sizes so that when you make your gauge swatch, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, you will have the hook size that you need. So then the extra items that you're going to need, the scissors, the measuring tape, the gauge to do your gauge swatch, all of that is going to tell you how many balls of yarn you need to buy, how much, you know, and the colors if you're going to make it exactly like the project. It's going to tell you if you're going to need, everybody's going to need scissors because you got to cut your yarn. Everybody's going to need a needle because you have to weave in your ends, but you may need stitch markers, and you may need a lot of stitch markers. I use stitch markers quite a bit, actually, a lot more than what people think that I do, especially if I've got and I don't use them on beginner projects, but I do use them on advanced projects quite a bit, because stitch markers are your best friend whenever it comes to repeating over and over and over again. And if you're not getting it, you know, and say you're doing a chevron blanket, which is the one that zigzags up and down, well, at the top put a stitch marker, and at the bottom put a stitch marker, and you can go all the way across doing that so that you don't forget, oh hey, I need to increase here and I need to decrease here. They're always more stitch markers the better, especially when you're beginning, and you might need them have them at the ends of each, at the end of each row, and just move them up. Stitch markers are wonderful for that. It's also going to tell you what your gauge swatch is, and we're gonna talk about gauge. So if it says that you need this is an example. I wrote this down. It's not gonna be, it's not true, but so I'm just saying, if you have, say, 40 stitches and over 24 rows, and you're using the size E hook because you're using a small yarn, and your gauge is going to be 4 inches by 4 inches, and you have to do 24 rows and 40 stitches to get that 4 inches. You need to make sure that you get that gauge if you want to make that item specifically for that size. So you need to make a gauge swatch before you start, and it'll tell you that, and make a gauge. Some of the patterns say you don't need to make a gauge. A lot of my patterns that I have, like for this, which is I haven't got done yet, but for like this tunic right here, or cover up, whatever you want to call it, I won't have a gauge swatch for it. I'll tell you how to measure it to your body. That one's already, that tan one right there is already online. I don't have a gauge swatch for it because it's made to your body, so you can use any yarn, any size, and it will fit you, because I tell you how to do that one. That's already up on my channel, and that's just it's just a cardigan. There are those patterns out there that you don't have to have a gauge swatch for, and then there are the ones that you do need a gauge swatch because it's fitted. And if it says make a gauge swatch. You think, oh, why am I doing this? But then whenever you realize that your 4 inches is actually 6 inches, then you can go down that. You can go down a hook size or 2. And if it says you're supposed to have 4 inches and you only have 3 inches, then you need to go up a hook size. So that's how you do your gauge swatches. And it'll tell you the stitches that you need to do. The other thing is, in the instructions, in the very beginning of the instructions, it'll say you're going to use this certain size of hook. Say it's a J hook, and you need to chain. So whenever it says you need to chain, it'll say CH for chain, and it'll say you're making a blanket, and it says you need to chain 190 stitches for your blanket, and you're using a J hook or a K hook or something like that, and you chain that 190 stitches, and it tells you that your blanket is going to be roughly 63 inches wide. What I like to do, your blanket grows as you put weight on it, and as it gets bigger, your blanket will expand out. Your project will expand out. That's just the nature of the beast. And so you want to make your project just a little bit smaller. It may not measure 63 inches, but the final product will. And so you need to chain that. And that is, whenever you do your chains, that's your foundation row. So if it says your foundation row is this, it'll be the chain stitch, and then you come back with the next one, and that is your foundation row. It's a foundation chain, and then your beginning foundation row. And let's see. So when you're starting out, you may want to go on a website like Pinterest or wherever you get information from, and you may want to print off a free chart that says CH equals chain, SC equals single crochet, because that's how these patterns are written. They're written in abbreviations. And so if it says DC, the number 2, TOG, that in parentheses. It should be in parentheses when it does that. DC, the number 2, TOG means double crochet 2 together. And so if you don't know that DC and TOG means double crochet and together, then you're going to kind of be sitting there lost. And so you need to kind of know what your crochet lingo is. So it's really good to get those charts and kind of study those charts and have one sitting beside you if you're following somebody's pattern to know, because they should be universal. So you need to, you can consult with those abbreviations to know what those abbreviations actually mean. Then you need to, it'll tell you to work, it'll say like row 1 is this, row 2 is this, row 3 is this, 4, 5, 6, and then it may say something like repeat. It may say like row 10 through 45 is repeat row 1, row 2 through whatever. And you'll go through and you'll repeat, say you're on row 10, so it's repeat from row 2 to row 9. And so row 10 would be row 2 repeated, 11 would be row 3, and you repeat that way. That's how you repeat. And you just keep going down until you get to the amount of rows that you need to be, and it'll say end on this certain row, and that's following your pattern. So if you are changing colors, if you're changing colors and say you want to change colors in your row, every row repeat, and you know that you've got probably a beginner would be a two row repeat, maybe 3 row repeat. Every 3rd row you want to change your colors, and so after 3 rows, on the 4th row you change your color, and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th are the same color, and you change your colors again. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that. But if it's not worked in, then you'll have to work that in and figure out where to change your colors. A lot of them will tell you change your color here. If it says to fasten off, because it'll say fasten off, that means that you are finished with that part of whatever it is, and you can either put it to the side or you're going to start something new in a different spot. And so you always want to fasten off wherever it says to fasten off. Then it'll say, say you have like, let's say a pillow. Say you're making a pillow, and it'll either say something like, say you're making a granny square to do a pillow, and you're following this pattern, and you're just making it big enough for a 12-inch pillow, and you're just going out with it to make a pillow. If you're following this and say, let's pretend this is 12 inches, you don't want this on the back side of it. You say the back side's supposed to be different. It'll either say make 2, one for the front and one for the back, or it will say this is what you do to the back. Say the back is just nothing but double crochets, and it'll tell you, it'll have another pattern, and it'll say back on it, and it'll have another pattern for the back. The same thing with your cardigans. If you're making a sweater or a cardigan, it'll say make 2 front panels for a cardigan, or it'll say the front panel and the back panel on sweaters. It could say something like work the same, but on the back side of your, but say you're changing colors and you have A and B in your colors, it could say something like work the same panel on the back, but use A for B and B for A. It could do that, and you might need to go back and mark on your pattern that, hey, this changes here and I need to do this. This is now A and this is now B. And then it'll have finishing on there, how to finish your pattern. It may say something like, darn in the loose ends. It may, it may say fasten off and sew in ends. It may not use the word darn, it may say sew in your ends. Or it may say fasten off and weave in ends as you go around with a border. It'll say darn, weave, or sew usually. Then it'll say, like if you're putting your two pieces together, it'll say with wrong sides facing or with right sides facing. It'll tell you how to do that. And that's part of sewing. When you sew it together, it'll say put your right sides together or put your wrong sides together. And then you're going to stitch around the edges. So the other very important thing before you begin your project is you need to make sure and look at the yarn label instructions before attempting to do a project. You need to know how to care for your yarn. So if it says, a lot of yarn now is saying that it's 100% acrylic, but you can't wash it and you have to hand wash and lay flat to dry. Then there's some yarns that say you don't wash it at all. So you don't want to use that kind of yarn. You want to look at your label right there. And this one is wash and that one is dry. Do not iron, do not dry clean, and I can't remember what that other one is, but we're going to go through those too. And so you want to look at you want to make sure that you can wash and dry. If it's a baby blanket, that the mom can wash and dry it. If it's dishcloths, you want to make sure that you can wash and dry those, and because they're going to get a lot of hard use. If it's a cardigan, you may not. You may want to hand wash, lay flat to dry so it looks new all the time. You can do that. Now, also, there's blocking that you may need to do at the end and that kind of stuff. There's also different ways to seam projects up, which we'll go through in another video, but on a gauge swatch, also, whenever it says to make your gauge swatch, it'll tell you how many you need to chain, how tall you need to chain it. It'll tell you all of that. Then you take your tape measure out and you measure across however many. Some gauge swatches are only 3 inches, but you need to crochet bigger. You'll need to crochet bigger and taller and let it rest so that you know how many inches that you're getting in both directions. But then measurements are usually really, really critical on garments when you're making garments. And whenever you're making a garment, you want to look at the sizing. It's extremely important to look at sizing on a garment. I'm a big lady. I'm a 3 or a 4. Some of them I'm a 5X. I just kind of fluctuate in between. It depends on the actual body measurements of the garment. That's the one thing that you need to take into consideration. It may say that a 2X is 60 inches because it's oversized. Well, I would go down a size because I'm not that big in the chest. So, and I don't like my things, I like them oversized, but not that oversized. So you kind of have to, you have to do your measurements, which on that first cardigan, I show you how to do your measurements. And it'll tell you, you know, how you need to have your garment. So you need to, if it's going to be fitted on you, you need to make sure that you have the measurements right and try it on as you go if you can. The garment measurements are usually specific bust, chest sizes, hip sizes, that kind of thing. And you can make these also fitted for you so that if your chest, if you're bustier than you are, say you're top heavy, but your bottom's pretty small, then you can make them larger in the top and then pare it down to the bottom. And you can change these patterns because they are just a guide. They're not set in stone that you have to do it. It took me a long time to figure out that these were not set in stone. I can mess them around a little bit because I'm very, very long bodied. I'm almost 6 foot tall. Sorry, had to cough. I still don't have a lot of air if you can't tell. So I'm very, very long bodied. And that being said, I'm also a big lady and, you know, almost 6 foot tall. So I have to get even regular sweaters to fit me correctly. I have to usually make it longer. Even tunics, I have to make longer. So, because I'm so long bodied, nobody is built the same. And so it's okay to change the pattern around, to add where you need to add, subtract where you need to subtract. If you're a shorter person, then, you know, you need to stop sooner than I do. I just keep on going and everybody else has to normally stop before me. My tunics are other people's dresses. I usually base those off of my mom and say, okay, is this going to be below my mom's knees or is this normal? Because my mom is, I think she's 5'5". And so that's how I usually base things. Is it for a normal person or is it for a giant like me? You also need to think, if you're making a garment, because we've switched now into making a garment, you also need to think, what color am I going to do? And I'm going to suggest your first garment be a very light color. And the only reason I'm saying that is because even if you are a color person like me, I like a lot of color. Most crocheters like a lot of color. I wear color, lots and lots of color. But a lighter color like this one, there's several reasons I think that you should start off with a light color. Tan, white, a light gray, a light blue, like that one would be okay. That tan right there would get a little dark. It's because of stitch definition. So your stitch definition, you can see your stitches better and you won't have such a hard time crocheting if you can see your stitches. I do not suggest any beginner start with a black, even if you're just dying to have a black sweater. You just want this black sweater so bad. If you do a black sweater, I do have tricks. But I would not suggest a beginner start out with darker colors because this is going to be hard to see. Multicolored ones like these are hard to see your stitches. I have a jacket made out of this one right here, and I didn't like it when I was doing it, but I muscled through and I was like, ooh, I like it now. And I get a lot of compliments on that one when I wear it. So things will surprise you. But if you're making a garment, start out with a lighter color. If you have to have color, go with a light version of that color. Go with this, like a blue or a tan, like this one's a cream color. Do a lighter version of whatever, like a pink, a light pink if you want pink, or a light gray, like I said, you know, something like that, because it's easier to see and you'll thank me later, especially if you're having trouble. My next one is avoid black for your first crochet. Do not do black. But if you are an advanced beginner and you're ready to try black because you've done several items and you're just wanting to get tips and tricks, one thing I can tell you is if you're working with a dark color, have a lot of light. Number one, they have light up crochet hooks that you can use, that the tip lights up. You can get those neck lights, which I use quite a bit actually. Get the neck lights. They have the glasses that have the lights on them because you need a lot of light in order to see. You may even need readers to see. The other thing is put something like a white blanket across your lap, something very light colored across your lap, so whenever you are looking at your black color or your dark color, you see that white and it shows you where your stitches are. So the lighter the color on your lap, the easier it is to see dark stitches. Even whenever you have, the other thing I do is I will go outside and crochet because it's just so much nicer lighting. So whenever you're doing dark stitches, don't be afraid to crochet outside. I do it all the time. And it's nice to crochet outside. The other thing you need to do, and remember this on all of your projects, if it says you're going to need 6 of this color, 10 of this color, I'm just going crazy, but 2 of this color and 5 of this color, you need to purchase all of those at the same time. And if you can't afford to purchase all of them at the same time, you need to purchase all of the same color at the same time so you get the same dye lot. Because you can't go to the store and say, I need this dye lot because I'm doing a project, and then you don't get it. You only pick up a couple because that's what you have the money for. You need to save your money and go to the store when you can pick up all of them at the same time. Because, and I can show you, hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, so I bought all of my yarn for this project at the same time. And I'm still working on it. I did a tutorial for this blanket. But you can see right here where it comes up and it changes to almost a green color. Can you see that right there? Sorry. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't. But see that green color? This is a different skein right here is where I changed. That's a knot right there, which I'll tuck that in. But this is where I changed colors. And I bought my yarn all at the same time. And see how you can see that different color that goes through? But it wasn't the same dye lot. And I was so excited to get it, I didn't even look at the dye lots. My mistake. But it's for me, and does it bother me? Nah, I'm okay with it. Now I did make, oh, and hang on, I'll show you my progress. This is almost 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, and now we're starting into the 4th one. But I did make what they call a car coat, which nowadays they call them dusters. Went down past my knees, almost to my ankles, and it was in a cream color. It was one of my first cardigans I ever made, and I wanted the lapel to be the same color as the coat, but when I got it out in sunlight, it's a different color. It did not look good. So I still have it, but I have never worn it, and I probably never will, because it doesn't look good. It's so different, but you could tell that it was done. I mean, inside you can't tell, but outside, man, you can tell. It's a kind of a yellow color, and it's supposed to be cream. It's supposed to be like an ivory color, and it turned out to be cream. So there are those problems that you run into. The other thing that I would suggest that you do is whenever you buy hooks, I suggest that you find a hook that you like. So when you're first starting out, you're trying out hooks, and you're probably trying out the cheap hooks like Susan Bates and Boy, and you know, the cheaper ones that you can get at the store. When you find a hook that you like, you need to buy a set so that you have all of the hooks, because it's cheaper to buy them in the set than it is to buy them individually. I have a fly in here. It's driving me crazy. So I would suggest when you find hooks that you like, try out one or two, unless they're cheap, and then buy a set. Like I have a set of these that I bought because I wanted to try them. These, which is the Temu knockoff, not Temu, Furls knockoff. And I like these. I really like them. I don't use them online a whole lot or whenever I'm crocheting a whole lot, because I still have to get used to them. My hand gets tired because they're heavy, and when I crochet, I usually crochet a lot. I haven't been able to lately. Today I about killed myself with peppers, and my husband. We had a lot of peppers, and we're smoking them right now. That's why I'm in here. Okay, so the set of hooks, you'll have all the sizes or most of the sizes in a set of hooks. And that's why I suggest it, because then you can go and you can get yarn and you can play around with your yarn, and you can do whatever, you know, if there's a project, you got scrap yarn and you want to do a project, you have different sizes to mess around with. Once you find the hooks that you like. I like Susan Bates. I'm a Bates girl. I prefer the tapered inline hooks. I can use any hook. I do not like the Boy hooks or the Boy style. I don't like tapered. I like the inline hooks. And so I like these too. I'm using one of these right now, but these are still inline. They're still an inline hook. But they're not as inline as the Susan Bates. Like the Susan Bates is like straight up and down. Those have just a little bit of taper to them, but not bad. But I like my tapered hooks. Don't ask me to use hooks that are not tapered, because I don't twist my hook. I roll my wrist, and that kills me whenever I crochet for a long time. So I like the in and the out. So when you're crocheting a garment, the one thing that you may want to do is you may want to figure out the instructions. You need to read through your pattern before you start your pattern. That's one of the best things I can tell you, so that you know. And if you need to make notes on your pattern, or what I used to have to do when I first started was I would write everything out. I would write it row by row so that I knew what it was. And there's some patterns out there to this day I can't do them, because there are those pattern writers that are very, very wordy. So if you have a pattern, oh, I wish I could pull one up right quick. I don't have very many patterns in here. If you have a pattern that says double crochet, 3 double crochets in the next 3 stitches in the row below. Well, hello? I know I'm going in the row below. Am I going, you know, I know I don't need in the row below. Only if it's something that's not a normal thing would I need that written in there. Or, you know, if it's 2 rows below, then yeah, I need to know that I'm not going in the row below, I'm going into the next row. And I need that, but I don't need, you know, in the row below, because that's a given. You're going to do it in the row below. So there's those people that are just really, really wordy that I can't follow their patterns. So if I write a pattern out, it would be the repeat. So say let's say it's a granny square, and I don't have to write granny squares out, but let's say I'm a beginner and I don't know what a granny square is supposed to be. So my first row, I would say 3 double crochets, chain 2, 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 join. That's how I would write it out. I would write 3DC, CH2, and I would do that all the way around, and then join. And then I would say chain 2 or 3 on the next one, and I would write out the first row, and then I would repeat that row 3 more times. So it's not like I write out everything. I would write out the repeat, and then I would know to repeat that however many times until I got the hang of it. The virus shawl was one of those that I wrote out. That was one of the first ones that I really had to write out, because I couldn't grasp the repeat for a while. So I had to write it out, and then I was like, oh, duh. You know, once I got the repeat, and now I pick up on those repeats really, really quick. But if that helps you, write out your pattern. Write it out where you understand the pattern. That's what I had to do. And or I would highlight, if a pattern was really, really wordy, I would highlight what I needed to do and go through and highlight all of it in different colors. Each row was a different color. Let's see. So you also need to take care, if you're a beginner, when you modify the pattern, because the pattern designer has worked most of the pattern out in detail. And so if she doesn't say, or he doesn't say, if you need to add on here for your bust, or you can decrease here for your waist. If it doesn't say that, I would try it on before I increased or decreased to make sure that it was going to look good, and then try it on after you increase and decrease to make sure in that certain area, to make sure that it's going to fit you. And there's a lot of try on in this kind of instance. I would say when you're first starting, to try to find a pattern in a pattern designer that is simple when you first start out, that is simple, that you can contact if you need to change your pattern, that they would help you change your pattern or tell you what you're doing wrong if you're trying to change it. YouTube is great for that. Any pattern designer on YouTube will help you normally. They may not be able to get back to you that day, but they should be able to get back to you pretty quickly if you have a problem with their pattern. And they, YouTube is really, really good. I wish I had YouTube when I started 47 years ago. It would have been so nice. Next Friday, I think we're going to go through how to read a graph. I think that's what we're going to do next week, so I'm going to stop right here. And we probably will go through all of the stitches and their abbreviations and graphs next week. So I hope this helps people. If you have questions, if you need help with something, just give me a shout out. I will be more than happy to help anybody with any pattern problems that they have. Like I said, I've been doing this for 47 years. I have a lot of it under my belt. I've taught a lot of people how to do this. And that's why I'm on YouTube, is to help people. I really enjoy helping other people. So don't be afraid to reach out to me if you're having a problem, even if it's one of my patterns. Just reach out and say, hey, can you help me with this? And I will see what I can do. If you do that, and if I forget to put it in the link below, my email address is Rebeccakaycrochet@gmail.com. Because I tend to forget to put all that information down below in the description box. So if I do forget it, that's what it is. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And like and subscribe and do all those good YouTube things. Turn on the bell notifications so you can get these classes when you need them. Thanks.